When I was back there in seminary school, there was a person there who put forth the proposition that you can petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. You cannot petition the Lord with prayer.
Awesome. Good. Turn that down.
The sound.
Yes, we are doing the Doors this evening. Welcome, welcome. Classic rock reviews, unfiltered, exclamation point with me, Mike Atwater.
Me, Mike Doherty. How are you?
And
good to see you today.
Dave Green, who's on assignment at Woodstock for the 55th anniversary of the Woodstock. So he's going to do some research on the next Woodstock. So.
Yes, for Santana, who performed at Woodstock. That's our next after. Nice
after
segue.
The Doors.
After the Doors. In a couple of weeks, we're going to be in a new location.
I think you'll like this new location,
yes,
and we're going to keep it a surprise.
Looking forward to it.
It'll be very fun.
It's going to be Santana.
So I'm
excited about.
I am too. So we got to get subscribers here, guys. We're kind of in the 30s, right? We're still in the low 30s. 32. We want to get to 40. We want to get to the big 40. So,
I want to get to 100.
Let's walk before we run, Mike. And we've been crawling. We've been crawling for months.
Yes.
So we are not going to beg, but petition the Lord. Anyway, I digress. So yes, we are very excited for the Doors this evening.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. If you do want to click on the little subscribe button, that'd be great. You can find us on YouTube. We got our own channel. Doesn't cost you any dough. You can just listen to us like ramble for 2.5 hours. What could be wrong with that? All right, 2.5 hours is kind of long. I mean, we're already what?
I think we're very interesting.
We're already at 2.5 minutes. We haven't done a damn thing.
You messed with the wrong Marine.
You just weakened the country, son. That's all you did. Anyway. But we are very,
I think
excited.
we're very interesting.
Yeah,
and we're very excited.
We are. So here's the deal. You guys know the shtick. You know, we pick an album. It doesn't have to be our favorite. We pick our top 4 of that album, rate it 1 to 4, and then we each kind of do our own 4 of each other's albums. So we like doing that too. But this is this group was from the origins of 1965 when Manzarek and Morrison, I think they met in film school, even though Manzarek is like 4 years older. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, here's one of the first rock stars we've done. It was born prior to 1940.
Yeah. 39, right?
Yeah. 2/12, 1939.
Raymond
Manzarek. That's the airport thing. So, you know, I mean, they met in film school at UCLA, and then they met on Venice Beach, and then Krieger and Densmore. So tell us who the top 4 are. They met them later, but tell us who the basic 4
okay.
are.
So Jim Morrison, 6'12". No. So he, and just like Mike said, he and Ray Manzarek met in film school in LA. And I guess Jim dropped out or something, and they met about a year later or so on Venice Beach in LA. And they had, you know, they weren't like super close during film school, but then they hit it off. And it was around that time then that they decided to start writing songs. And I guess Jim had 6 songs or so that he had already written and kind of read. He didn't have the music, but he read the lyrics to Ray. And
what was it? Moonlight
Drive was
Moonlight Drive was one of them.
Awesome. And so Ray was very impressed with these lyrics because they're like, you know, pretty unconventional. And so they started the group. And originally, two of Ray Manzarek's brothers were in the band.
Rick and the Ravens.
And John Densmore then was in a different band, and they recruited him for drums. Ray Manzarek, by the way, amazing keyboard player.
He has the Doors sound. It is the Doors sound.
It is the Doors sound,
Yep.
for sure. Absolutely. That's the defining sound. And they, kind of toiled around for a year or so with two of Ray's brothers, who then dropped out, and they recruited Robbie Krieger, who I didn't see anything specific about what Robbie Krieger had been doing prior to being recruited by the Doors, but apparently he, in another interview that I had listened to on YouTube, that he had only been playing electric guitar for a very short time. He was kind of a Spanish guitar player. So he kind of took to the, obviously he's a savant, and he really took to the electric guitar and developed his own sound. And he's a huge, his guitar playing is, I think, along with Ray's keyboard playing, I think are the two, defining kind of, they're just unconventional, and Robbie, took to, not to jump ahead too far, but he really took to songwriting, and just naturally. And Light My Fire, according to Robbie Krieger, was the very first song that he wrote.
It's amazing.
Where
do you go from there?
It's a good start. So yeah. So that was in 65, 66.
One thing I want to add on there. So we had Densmore on drums, right? We talked about,
right.
But they did have a bass player before they like started doing albums and stuff like that. It was a woman by the name of Patricia Sullivan, who actually was the bass player on it. And then after a while, Ray was like, well, we really don't need a bass player because I can play, like they used to get a bass keyboard and he could play the bass sound on all live stuff. Because that's all they were doing, right? At the time, they had a few demos, and they wanted to do live stuff, and he figured he could just get away with it during live. Now, you can't get away with it studio albums. And he even admitted that they had to get some bass players on their session players for their studio albums. So they never really had a true bass player.
Right.
Continue.
Yeah, no, that's true. Jerry Sheff was a bass player. I think he played on Ellie Woman and Morrison Hotel, if I'm not mistaken.
Larry Knechtel from the Wrecking Crew was on there too. I'm surprised. I think Carol Kay was a bassist, wasn't she?
She was.
She was amazing. I was surprised they didn't get her. But anyway, Larry was on. He played a little bit on their, I don't know if it was the second album, but anywho.
Yeah, no, if you really listen to their albums, like especially, I was listening to Morrison Hotel quite a bit today, and the bass playing, that's his album. The bass playing on that album is really good, and I think that's Jerry Sheff, if I'm not mistaken.
Might be, yeah.
I know Jerry Sheff played on Ellie Woman, and Jerry Sheff was the bass player in Elvis's band. He's really good. So then so they got signed by Elektra in 66, and their debut came out in January 67, and then they hit the ground running. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about their albums? I think you might have one or two of their albums. We'll kind of go through some of the ones because we have to, right? I mean, it's just Mike and I think they had at least 8 albums. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that. Get a little synopsis of the ones we didn't do.
Sure. All right. So I don't have all their albums. I think at one time I probably did have all their albums, but I don't have all of them now. But this obviously is the debut, which is, in a way you could call this the Doors' greatest hits album, because it has most of their most well-known songs on it. This came out in January 67 and has, the hit songs from this album, Break On Through, of course, Light My Fire. But every single song on this album is amazing. They're all, Soul Kitchen is amazing. Crystal Ship, 20th Century Fox. Alabama
Alabama
Song
Mhm.
is from a play.
You're my backdoor man.
Backdoor Man, I think it was Willie Dixon.
Yep,
And
and the end.
the end is amazing. And if you want to see the visual representation of the end, you watch Apocalypse Now. And uh, just amazing debut. And
Incredibly psychedelic blues,
yeah, absolutely.
right? Psychedelic blues. You
very
really,
and very unique. They carved their own place from the very start. You know, they didn't have to take any time to like develop a sound or anything. I mean, they did that, over a year before they got signed. But you know, you listen to that album and it's like that. Nobody else from 66, 67 sounds like that.
No.
They carved their own path.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
the keyboards were just fantastic. I mean, Ray, as I said at the outset, just it's a Doors song when you hear those keyboards. Okay, do you have Strange Days or not?
I don't have Strange Days.
This might be one of the first few albums that Mike doesn't have an album.
And to be honest with you, I think I did have Strange Days at one
He
time.
always says this.
I
Always. I thought I had him here.
I had so
Okay,
many
who
albums.
stole it?
No, it's not that. I used to sell a lot of records. Like I would have records, and if I needed money and stuff, I would sell them. And I wish that I didn't do that. So, but I'm pretty sure that I had it at one time. But the next one that I do have, I actually have two copies.
Before we go to the next one, I think
Yes.
Strange Days is really a better album than I originally thought.
Strange Days is amazing.
And a lot of sophomore albums don't do as well as the original. And this is I kind of liken the Doors debut album with the Cars debut album because we did them earlier. Greatest hits. That's what we said. And then like their second album, which is almost as good, Candy O, I was like, Strange Days. I don't know. But then, as we've said many a times, when you listen to an album and you give it credence more than once or twice, you have to kind of run through it a few times. And by the way, Soft Parade, what she's doing, that's his album. I liked it more and more as I listened to it.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
So-
like the critical reception and the fan reception of Soft Parade is gained over the years. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Strange Days is the same kind of thing, because actually, when I was reading, Strange Days didn't. A lot of critics were not as enthusiastic about it, and the sales were definitely not as good, and none of the singles did as well as. Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, Light My Fire is like, one of those songs, right? That every group has at least one song that's like,
Right.
part of the canon. If you want to say that, like you could say that about the Beatles' Hey Jude, right? It's like number one for 8 weeks or something like that. I mean, it's just totally off the chart, right? And there's lots of bands that have those kind of, like, you say the Rolling Stones, like, can't get, no satisfaction or whatever, it just like outperforms the band's catalog in general, right? They're known for that song, whether they've made a million songs or whatever, like the Beatles and the Stones are. They're sometimes they're known for that song,
Yeah. Your lost little girl. But that was a good song. Moonlight Drive. Love Me 2 Times. Love Me 2 Times. I'm gonna work. Take it, Robbie.
Yeah.
What does he say? Take it, Robbie.
Right. Strange Days is a great song.
Strange
It's a
Days.
really great album.
When the music's over, turn out the light.
It seems like every single one of their albums has like one kind of like epic kind of closer. And
the first 2 albums, the end,
when the music's over
yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like on Waiting for the Sun, which is their next album.
Think about it. So Waiting for the Sun, but they had 2 incredible albums in '67, and then this is their third.
Yes, and I actually have 2 copies of this. I'm going to show both of them just
course.
What the fuck? Why not? I have two.
They look alike. Wow.
They're slightly different.
One's dirtier.
One has this.
What is that?
One has, I don't know, some catalog number at the top, and then one doesn't. Not sure. Great picture, by the way. They look very cool in this picture.
They do. I always love the pictures where the cameraman's on the ground and takes the pictures up above. It's pretty cool.
Let's see what the interior. Okay, so the interior is this Celebration of the Lizard, which is a poem. That's a great album. What I was going to say, like, you know, their first three albums, they all have an amazing kind of epic closer at the end.
Oh, how about this?
So the end, then when the music's over on Strange Days and 5 to 1. You know, this is the back of it.
Yeah.
5 to 1 is amazing.
Hello, I love you.
I love
Won't
this
you
album.
tell me your name?
This album didn't get as much. Again, you know, I suppose when you start like so high,
Yeah, that was
their
the problem.
debut, just amazing, and you have "Light My Fire" on there, which is, you know, eternally their most popular song. You're bound to, like, you know, go down a little bit in terms of, at least in terms of the mass kind of culture, kind of popularity or whatever. But I think that true Doors fans would not diss this album as much as it has been disregarded by, over time with critics and all that stuff. I mean, it's a great album. Hello, I Love You is on here.
Love Street.
Not to Touch the Earth is a great song. Love Street, Unknown Soldier is a great song.
That might have
Spanish
put
Caravan.
Yeah.
5 to 1. I mean, this album is really good.
The Unknown Soldier. I mean, it's, you know, when Jim started, and we'll talk about some of the incidents that he's had, but the Unknown Soldier, I mean, he started getting on the FBI's list, and you know, when you get big and you get commercial, like they did, they got a lot of airplay. You know, some of the stuff that Jim was saying and doing, particularly the lyrics in the Unknown Soldier. You know, you got to remember, Vietnam War is raging, and we're pouring a lot of troops and money out there. Just people are just very disillusioned about the war in general. And when you play the Unknown Soldier and you listen to it, very, like Mike has said all along with this group, very unconventional. I mean, if you listen to that song, it's like, ha! Oh, march! You know, there's shotguns.
Right.
I mean, you know, it wouldn't surprise me that the government's like, what the hell is this guy fomenting here? So, anywho.
Yeah, especially at that time.
Yeah.
You know, Hoover being the FBI
Yeah.
director, and, you know, feeling that kind of way about a lot of, like, rock stars or pop stars. I mean, John Lennon was put on the list and wiretapped and all that. And I'm sure that there was a lot of similar kind of figures that they felt threatened by, you know, these young people disrupting the establishment.
Right.
Yeah. All
right. Well, the next two albums we're doing. So let's go to LA Woman. Do you have the 71?
I do. I have a tape. I have a cassette tape. There it is.
All right. Should I mention
You should.
The faux pas? There is a faux pas. If you look very closely at the top of that, as Mike takes it away, do you see "the" in front of the Doors? That bothers me. I think they must have sent out like thousands of albums, and then some dickhead. Sorry, this is not for kids, by the way.
It's unfiltered.
We swear. There's some swears in this.
Swears,
as my kids would always say. Where's "the"? Did anybody notice this?
It just says.
Is anybody proofreading this? Is anybody auditing this?
It's unbelievable.
It does bother me to this day. We're talking 50.
I'm not quite as upset about it as Mike, but
he will be. If he keeps looking at it long enough, just like listening to a music. If you keep looking at it long enough, it might piss him off. No.
It is.
We could spend 20 minutes on this, Mike.
It's disruptive.
It is disruptive.
It is.
Anywho, let's talk about LA Woman, shall we?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right.
Do you know anything about this album? Do you have the album? Just the cassette.
I have
The Changeling, great opener. I love the Changeling.
This is a great album. I love I love not all the songs in this album, but I love, yes, The Changeling is a great song. L'America is a great song.
Very
Hyacinth
spooky,
House.
by the way. Lay America is a very not haunting. I don't like haunting. Spooky. It's just
America, America.
very nice. Nice.
Hyacinth House,
Yes.
I think is one of the best songs.
Riders on the Storm.
Yeah, Riders.
Bling, bling. I know you don't like it.
No, I like it. It's one of those songs like you've heard like 10 million times, so it's not one of my favorite songs. But there's other great songs like Wasp, the Texas Radio and the Big
Oh, yeah.
Beat. That
That's a good one.
I think that's probably that's one of my favorite songs of theirs of all time.
And I'm going to say, "Love Her Madly," here they are, better 10 billion
Love
times.
Her Madly is great. LA Woman is great. Some of the, there's a couple of blues songs on there that I could do without a little bit. They get kind of long.
Yeah.
Like something hissed by my window or something.
Yeah, that's
like that.
not a good one.
And then there's another
Cars.
like kind of blues song on there that's kind of like, okay, all right. Well, actually, the track listing is right here in the front. So,
Can you read that? It's in red and black.
Cars Hissed by My Window. It's a little long. What else? Been Down So Long. I like that one. There's another blues song. What's the other one? Is it Calling King Snake? Is
Might
that what
be
it
that
is?
one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love the blues and but these are like extremely traditional blues songs, and they just get a little long. That's all.
I hear you. I hear you.
They just go on a little too long for my taste.
And that came out in March, and of course in July we'll talk about Jim's passing, which just terrible circumstances. But then after he passed away, they put on 2 more albums, one called Other Voices. I think this is not bad. I think that a lot of them. I think there's a lot of the songs that they had in the cooker from LA Woman that and unfortunately Jim doesn't sing them, right. It's Ray and Robbie. But the way I look at it is on these songs, if you can listen to it and think of Jim singing it and not Ray or Robbie, and nothing against you guys are amazing instrumentalists, but when you're talking about the Doors, he's the front man, and you got to admit. But if you can listen to Jim singing it, there's I would say about a third of the songs, I would say definitely. If you heard Jim singing it, it's an A.
I think that, yeah. I listened to, I had never really listened to Other Voices or, what's the next one?
Full Circle.
Before. I mean, just like very briefly, I had listened to them just to see what they sounded like. Those are the 2 albums without Jim Morrison. And I listened to Full Circle yesterday. I really could not get through it. I listened to the first couple songs and I was like, Ray and Robbie, as amazing as they are as keyboard player and guitarist and songwriter and all that stuff, their voices are just so bad. They're not good. Even if they were just like average singers, I think it'd be okay. But Jim's voice was like such a huge part of the band. That kind of baritone, like really commanding kind of, even without the whole imagery and the I kind of whatever, what's the word, iconography or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. The legendary status of Jim Morrison, all that stuff. Even if he was just like a normal person with that voice that he had, that baritone voice, that was such a huge part of the band. Just the sound of his voice,
And they knew it too, right? That was the last album they did. I think by the end of Full Circle, they're like, guys, we got to do something else because this isn't working, as far as the vocals go. And so up until 1978, which is kind of their last album, An American Prayer, which is basically Jim's poetry set to music, and they did an amazing job. I think Jim was probably looking down on him, saying, "Thank you, guys," because that's what he wanted. He always wanted to be a poet first and a rock star second.
That's a good. I like that album, American Prayer.
You should listen to it. It's really good. If you love poetry and you love Jim's poetry, you're going to love the music set to it. Some of the music is from other albums, like excerpts, but it's really good. I thought the guys did a fantastic job, and that came out like 6 years later in '78. Petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer.
Petition the Lord with prayer.
You can't petition the Lord with prayer. Yeah, he's got a better cadence on that one, I think.
That sounded pretty good, though.
Was that not bad?
I liked it.
Jim, what do you think?
It's very.
Are you in Africa? We don't.
It's
really
very
know.
commanding.
All right.
I like it.
We're gonna go with it. We'll
I
see
like
how
it.
it sounds, and then we'll
You have to
edit
be
it.
like a deep, kind of like super fan of Doors to even know what we're talking about at this point, right?
Yeah, no one's gonna know what we're
No,
talking
because
about.
the Soft Parade is not one of their most well-known.
Yeah, but you're gonna talk
songs.
about it.
I am going to talk about it.
So don't leave us, please.
Don't leave us.
No matter how many times we do this shtick.
We'll explain it, right?
We will.
And you'll understand it.
Maybe we should have said that at the
You
beginning.
might not like it, but you'll understand it.
Yeah. All right. Well, what we're going to do before we go into our albums, we are going to talk about Jim Morrison's persona on stage. I mean, Jim was a firm believer in freedom of expression and just kind of improvising while the guys were doing their instrumentals or solos or what have you. And that was a big part of his persona. And that was his idea. It was a persona. That's all it was. It was acting. And after a while, he didn't want to act anymore, which is why he went to Paris to get away from it all. But unfortunately, he went a little bit too far. And I think even his bandmates would say maybe he went a little bit too far, particularly when they were trying to make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they were staying at the Whiskey A Go Go, and they were kind of the main group in '66, and
The house band.
they were a house band. Thank you. I was looking into that. And they were playing there a long time. And of course, you know, that's a great place right on the Sunset Strip. But one night, August 21st, 1966, which was 8 days before the Beatles did their last performance in Candlestick Park, by the way, they had an incident out there. And I guess on stage, he was doing his Oedipus soliloquy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what he's...
Yeah, from the end, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just kind of swore up a storm and kill your mother and, or, you know, kill your father, sorry.
Right.
Mother, I want to...
Right, but on stage, he actually said the words.
Yeah. What did he say? What was the mother one? Say it.
I want to F you.
Yeah.
All night, you know.
That did it. That's what did it.
The owner of the whiskey fired him that night.
And of course, Jim Price said, prescient with doing before he did the Ed Sullivan. Yeah, we did the whiskey.
Right.
Yeah, we did the Whiskey
Right.
Go-Go. We were the house band. Who cares?
But I think it was before that Elektra, like Jack Holzman from Elektra, saw them at the whiskey. Or no, he saw them at the whiskey and then signed them based on their performance. So, you know, when they got fired from the whiskey, it wasn't like wasn't a career ender. It was actually, you know, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. We have a record label now, so
They did. Now, they don't have
you know.
they don't have an album yet. Let's just kind of throw that out there. They might have demos and stuff,
Yeah.
but they don't have
They
an
were
album
signed,
yet.
though.
They were signed,
Yeah.
which is great, dudes. Jim, you just screwed up our whole thing. That would have been me, right? But they did fine. They did fine. But they had another incident. This was on September 17th, 1967 at the Ed Sullivan Show. Mike, you want to?
All right. So that's when they were making their, I don't know if it was their television debut in America.
Good question.
I suppose.
I don't know.
Could have been, maybe not, but
Most
I'm not
popular.
sure. Most popular television show. So, following in the footsteps of the Beatles and Elvis and the Rolling Stones. So, most popular variety show around at that time. And similar to what Ed Sullivan had asked the Rolling Stones to change their lyrics to "Let's spend the night together" to "Let's spend some time together," which the Rolling Stones acquiesced and did that.
Which is surprising to me.
It is surprising. So they asked the Doors to change the lyric from
"Girl, We Couldn't Get Much Higher"
yeah
to
"Girl, We Couldn't Get Much Finer," which if you watch the Doors movie, that's in there. And they agreed to it, but when they did it, and it was a live show, they didn't do it. He just sang the normal, "We couldn't get much higher" lyric. And so after the show, then according to the movie at least, Ed Sullivan's producer was like, "You'll never appear on Ed Sullivan again," and and the Doors said, "Well, we already did it. We already did Ed Sullivan, so who cares?"
So cavalier. See, I would have been the straight-laced guy. I probably would have quit the band and said, "You guys are screwing this up." I wouldn't have realized that any press, bad or good, is probably press that people are going to listen to you. People are going to give you a look-see, per se.
Yeah, I always wonder if all the Doors, all four of them, felt that same way about those kind of like cavalier.
Has anybody ever asked the members of the Doors in interviews?
I'm sure they have.
I haven't seen them, and it's like just wondering whether like, oh geez, are we going to last here?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know from a lot of interviews that I've listened to where oftentimes it was 3 against 1. The other Doors were not happy with the way that Jim acted. I don't know specifically about the Ed Sullivan Show, but in oftentimes they were really aggravated and frustrated by his alcohol abuse, and which became increased over time, and that their inability to finish concerts or a tour or all those kind of things. They didn't really have any kind of really long tours because of the fact of his antics. They were not able to book as many kind of shows as that they wanted to or should have been able to in order to maximize their ability to make money.
Yeah.
And he was like really frustrating to them, and it was kind of like he was kind of like a wild card on stage. They didn't know how he was going to act, if he was going to be normal and just sing the songs and all that stuff, or if he was going to break down and all those kind of things that if you watch the Doors movie, you can see all those many incidents. Two of which, I
mean, the one in New Haven, Connecticut, that's the first time I think that he actually got arrested on stage. The cops actually came up, and Jim's got a weird look on his face, like, what's going on here?
Right.
But they arrested him because he was, I guess prior to him getting on the stage, he'd been drinking all day in New Haven as well. And I guess he was in the bathroom, and they were kind of waiting for him to come on the stage, and the police were there. And I guess he was in a bathroom stall with a girl, and they're like, okay, get out of there. I don't know what was happening, but they were going to spray him with mace, and he told them to eat it. And the police guy's like, I'm gonna spray you if you don't. And he's like, eat it again. I mean, he was just being, and then he gets on stage.
Did they know who he was?
I don't think they did.
Okay.
I don't think they did. So then he gets on stage, and he's drunk. I mean, he's just absolutely he's doing, he's swearing on stage, and it's just the usual.
So it was
antics.
Inciting I think he's like telling the story about what happened backstage, right? So he's kind of inciting the crowd.
Right.
Yeah.
Making fun of the
Mhm.
police, you
Right.
know. So that didn't help. But then the worst one, I think the one that probably they had to stop touring because he
Right. They couldn't book any more
no
shows.
March 1st, 1969 at the Dinner Key Theater in Miami. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So I again, was drinking all day. I guess he missed his flight to Miami and all that stuff. So then when he actually, when he got there, he was like totally loaded, and it was just kind of chaos. And he got arrested after the show for
Indecent.
obscenity, indecent exposure. They said that he exposed himself on stage. Um, and he was arrested, and there was a trial, and I think that he was actually convicted, and like for like a year of like hard labor or
Yeah,
something
he was
like
on
that,
probation. I think that really scared him.
right? And but I think
Yeah, he appealed it.
during the appeal process, that's when they I think they recorded. Well, that was in when did that concert? It was March of
69.
'69. Um, so I guess they recorded Morrison Hotel and LA Woman under that sort of the kind of black cloud of that hanging over him. Um,
They kind of stopped touring.
they did stop touring, and they were not able to tour because promoters were afraid that he wouldn't be able to. That they would not able to like actually perform the concerts, and they that they would be that his erratic behavior would um, you know disturb the tour or the concert or whatever, and that they would lose money, so they were not really able to book the kind like a tour.
Mm-hmm.
They might do a show here and there, but they weren't able to do like what other groups do, where you know do 20 concerts across the United States or anything like that. They couldn't do that. They just could not get enough promoters to actually front the money, I suppose. So that was kind of and under that black cloud. And here's a question that I have, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, and I haven't been able to see anything. If he was like still under appeal for that Miami incident that happened in '69, when he left in early 70, what was it, March of
71.
'71, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere spring of '71, when he went to France, you know, why was he allowed to leave the country? I don't know. I mean,
I don't
you
either.
know,
Yeah, you
I
would have
don't
thought
know.
they'd
I mean, I'm
extradite
sorry,
him.
I'm confused about that because usually, if you're under appeal, I suppose. I mean, I'm not a scholar or a legal
Or a
scholar
lawyer.
or anything
Yeah.
like that, but that you would think that he wouldn't be allowed to leave the country during that process. But anyway, he did, and he had died in France in what, July of '71. Yeah.
Day before, U.S. Independence Day. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it just became a circus after a while because he just improvised a little bit too much under the influence of alcohol primarily. And that's unfortunate because that's a big moneymaker, right? The tours.
Absolutely.
I don't think you make it so much on the albums as you do on the tours, right? Or is that the other way around? I don't even know. But it
I don't
didn't
know.
help.
I don't know what their royalties were at that time, but yeah, no, they could have been making a lot of money,
Right.
But if you're only a lot, if you're only able to book like 5 or 6 shows at a time, rather than doing a national tour where you're going for a couple months, all across the country.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
Miami. I mean, that's what the straw that broke the camel's back for them as far as being able to tour. And you think about it. I mean, you're in Miami, and even though it was in March, it was really hot. They said that there was no air conditioning in this place. It was like a hangar, an airplane hangar, and it seated 7,000.
Mm.
But apparently, there were 12,000 people there. Can you
Mhm.
imagine? It was such a ruckus. I mean, there was just so much going on that day, and he was late, right? because he, as Mike said, he caught a later flight and walks in with a sheep. Right, it's just a big circus.
Yeah, he's like carrying a lamb or something like in his arms. Yeah,
And you see footage of I think the police officers are on the stage watching him writhing around and goofing around, and is like he was like a snake to them, which is kind of weird because he calls himself the Lizard King, right? And if you look at the footage, that you can find it on YouTube of them, like it's like a snake, right? Like they're like watching them,
right.
It's like a whole bunch of officers are on the stage.
It's almost as if they wanted to. They were anticipating a problem,
and they got it
were looking for it, and they were eager to snuff it out.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so on that note, we're going to segue to our albums that we picked. Mike's going to go first.
Okay. I have the Soft Parade.
Okay.
Which came out in July of 1969. And let me look at my notes real quick. Sorry.
We have notes. We need notes.
July 18th, 1969. The thing about this album that is different from all their other albums is that there was their producer, Paul Rothschild, who produced all their albums except for LA Woman. All their albums while Jim Morrison was alive, except for LA Woman. He had suggested that they use an orchestra and like brass instruments as background kind of sound, which is their only album that they do that. And all the Doors were agreed with that. I think it adds something to the album. I have to be honest with you. There's a lot of brass. If you listen to the album, there's a lot of brass all throughout it, and there's a lot of violins and cellos or whatever. And I think it adds to the sound. I mean, it's a different sound. It's definitely different from the rest of their albums. I like it. I think it's cool.
It was their most expensive album. I don't know if it was to date, but like because you have to pay all these session players, right? All the brass and strings. People said it was kind of like their Sgt. Pepper, like almost 2 years later. It was almost, some people kind of said that this was too passe because by the time it came out, everybody had done their Sgt. Pepper at that point, which I think is unfair because I don't think this is in any way, Sgt. Pepper, different sound than the Soft Parade. Mm-hmm. But I think at that time people were judging, right? Like we judge, right? It's our opinions. Mm-hmm. But I think it got a little bit
because it was different from what they had been before. Waiting for the Sun is definitely a psychedelic album, and this is a big departure from that. It's not psychedelic really at all. Mm-hmm. And I'll when I get to the songs that I'm going to pick. The pop songs and some blues songs and some experimental kind of spoken word kind of songs. But it's definitely different from their first three albums, for sure. Absolutely. I think it's a great album. I really like it a lot. Over time, when it first came out, the critical review was very poor. And initially the sales were poor as well as compared to their first three albums. But over time, the critical reception of the album has become a more favorable, and it was platinum, just like all their, the first album. I don't know how many albums that sold, probably like 10 million or something like that. But I mean, it was a successful album. So, what else? I think it reached number. Sorry, my notes are kind of disjointed here. Reached number 6 on Billboard.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
high.
And it's good. Yes, it's a successful album, definitely.
In the U.S., right? U.S. Billboard.
And yeah. Mm-hmm. He had 4 singles. Touch Me came out in 68 ahead of the album, and that reached number 3. And then Wishful Sinful. None of their other singles from the album reached the top 40, but Wishful Sinful came out, and that reached number 44. Tell All the People was 57, and Running Blue was number 64. So really the only successful single was Touch Me. But what else? Trying to think if there's anything else here. Most of the album was written by Robbie Krieger as opposed to Jim Morrison. And I mean, Morrison certainly had his credits on the album, but Krieger's influence on this album was a lot higher. And this was the first album where it wasn't credited to just All Four Doors. You know, their first 3 albums were like all music. Well, not all music, but I mean, all songs written by the Doors, right? This is the first album where they individually, those writing credits are, individually noted, right? So Krieger has a lot of songwriting credits on here, just as the sole songwriter, like Tell All the People and Touch Me and Running Blue, Wishful Sinful. And then Morrison has the rest of them. So it's kind of half-half. So it's, there are other albums. I'm not sure.
But they still split them 4 ways, though, didn't they?
I don't know if they did. This was the first album where it was just only.
Do we have the legal agreement?
Was only solely credited
Got
to, individually credited, whereas the first 3 albums were just all
4.
All songs by the Doors, right? And it was Morrison Hotel. What is that? Do you know?
I don't.
Yeah. So I think I'm pretty sure that on both Soft Parade and Morrison Hotel, they were the songwriting credits were,
Not
individually. Exactly. They were noted individually. But I think then with LA Woman, I think they went back to all 4 again. What else?
Let's hear your top 4, unless you have more facts. Do you have more facts?
I'm thinking.
Why'd they call it the Soft Parade? I wonder.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
All right.
I think those are all my notes from this album. I like this album a lot. I got this record when I was in college. I want to say when I was a junior. So that's about 1991 or 2. And I didn't actually buy the album, this record or the CD. I'm pretty sure that I went to the library and I taped it off of the CD or whatever. But I really liked it, and it's a very unusual album. And once I start playing the songs, you'll kind of see that, other than Touch Me, which is one of their most well-known songs, and it's from this album, the rest of the songs in the album are not really that well known, and they're kind of like off the beaten track, right? They're a lot. These songs are not appearing on their greatest hits albums or anything like that. So, but
a lot of deep
cuts. I think it's a great album, and that's why I chose it. So, all right, my first song from Soft Parade,
yes,
Wild Child.
All right, I had that at number 2. All right. Okay, Wild Child.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to start it over again. I'm sorry. It's unfiltered.
Got a 5-1 feel.
Wild child,
Full of grace.
human race.
I like that part.
Mhm.
That's why I put it at number 2, just because of that.
I think Robbie Krieger is definitely an underrated
Songwriter.
and guitar player.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
think
and
so.
he definitely has his own style, and I don't think he's like regarded high enough.
No, he's not. Well, when you got Morrison behind the mic and you got Ray's keyboards, which are prevalent, and and he's got, Robbie's got some nice solos. I mean, absolutely, it's but
Yeah, no, he's not
he's
like
a,
he's
he's
not
under,
like a
he's like a
Hendrix.
John. Well, he's like a. I'm not going to say John Paul Jones from a technical standpoint,
Mhm.
but from an underrated standpoint.
Yes.
He's quiet. He's unassuming. Again, that unassuming,
Right.
character.
He's one of the biggest reasons why the Doors were successful.
Light My Fire, for Christ's sake. Oh,
He
that's
wrote-
my first song I wrote. Really?
Right, and he wrote so many of their hit songs. He wrote "Light My Fire." He wrote "Love Me Two Times." He wrote "Touch Me." I mean, he wrote like most of their at least at least half of their biggest songs,
commercial ones. Yeah.
Right, their commercial songs. Yes.
Good job, Robbie.
So
happy
I think
80,
it's
whatever, wherever
amazing.
you are at, man.
Yeah. So yes, that's my fourth song, "Wild Child."
My second.
My next song is
That would be
"Running Blue."
Ooh, now see, I don't have that one. I'll tell you why.
Left me here to sing his song. Pretty little girl with a red dress on. Poor Otis dead and gone.
This is
Get back down to rest, slowly try it again. Remembering when it was easy, try it again. Much too easy.
Gavin comment on this.
All right. I think that's Robbie singing that part.
It is.
That's a good example of why he's not a good singer. But yeah.
Well, this song is Bob Dylan meets Chicago, the group Chicago, meets the Doors.
How does it meet the Chicago?
You'll see. There's when they start playing all the brass shit.
Okay.
Here we go.
That's fine. Okay.
Here we go. Take it away,
Yeah,
Chicago.
that's cool. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There, right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there's Chicago.
There's definitely a jazz
Well, that's
kind
Ray.
of influence. On
Ray
this album.
Manzarek is trying to get all his jazz stuff in there from keyboards.
And it really is very different from the rest of their albums. The rest of their albums are very rooted in blues and like kind of a psychedelic blues. And this album has that, but it also has a lot of kind of, interesting kind of like
Now you turn it down.
segues and all that.
And now you turn it down. Now you turn it up again. You turn it down when you're talking.
I want people to go.
Well, when I'm talking, I'm like, turn it down, turn it down. You didn't get the cue. Okay, what do I need to do? This? I
Yes.
need to do that.
You can touch my leg.
No, don't touch me, babe. No. All right. All right, so that's your number 3.
That's number 3.
I didn't have it. There were some other songs that I liked.
All right, my number 2.
Yes. Be careful. Be careful. Oh, yeah. That was my number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this album. I really like this album a lot. I think it's very underrated.
There is the strings on this song that make my hair stand up. My hair everywhere stand up. Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Everywhere. Just listen to the strings. Yeah. It's awesome. Of course, it's like 3 minutes in, but you're gonna have to listen to it. Okay.
All right, it's fine.
It's unfiltered. You can get something. Go get a piece of pizza.
Want to share this?
That's all you.
All right.
I'm supposed to go to Wisconsin tomorrow. I gotta be on my game.
I'm going to East Lansing tomorrow.
By yourself.
By myself. Yes. And I don't know if I'm going to be listening to Santana all day today.
That's our next group. So be tuned in.
It's going to be exciting because I'm not like a savant of Santana. They have so many albums, so I'm excited about exploring their catalog.
Got it.
It's coming up. This part?
Not this part. But it's cool. That is
cool.
That's an oboe.
Is that what that is?
It's either an oboe or it's frickin' Manzarek on the keyboard doing an oboe. But I love the strings.
The strings are all over this album. I really think it adds so much to this album. But that was one of the...
Just turning it down. Anyway.
As they turn it up. That's one of the criticisms when this album first came out. Was all people felt like it was like trying to be too commercial with all the strings and brass and all that stuff. Whereas people didn't feel that way about the Beatles when they did that. So
they got a pass. They got a free pass.
I don't know why.
Yeah, every album they did was different,
Right. Yeah,
here it is.
Yeah. It's great.
It's a great song. Fantastic.
The Beatles were allowed to
experiment
and change it up every single time, but apparently the Doors were
they didn't get that pass.
Criticized by their fans that when they tried to change it up. Doesn't sound like the Doors anymore.
Do you think why is because they were so poppy with the girls and the teenagers, and they finally changed it? Maybe they got a whole new audience, so they lost all the teeny boppers, but they gained a mature.
The Beatles.
Yeah. And whereas the Doors, maybe they didn't get that audience of teeny boppers. They certainly weren't getting. Well, maybe they were getting teeny boppers. I don't know, but
yeah, that's hard to say. That's a good question.
All right, I think I know what your number one is.
Do you?
Maybe I don't.
I don't know if you do.
Oh, I don't! Come on!
My number one.
Touch. Shaman Blues. Oh, the big one, the long one.
Yeah.
Wow! Now that is a departure.
This is the Soft Parade. This is the last song on the album, and this is like a medley of different little sections, little poetry sections, and little instrumental sections, little.
Petition the Lord, isn't it?
Petition the
When
Lord.
I was back there
Here we
in
go.
seminary school,
This is what we were goofing around
This
with.
is what we were talking
there was
about.
a person there who put forth the proposition that you can petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer. You cannot petition the Lord with prayer.
That's what we were talking about. I hope you're still with us.
I think we did that a good rendition of that.
We did.
Can you give me sanctuary?
So there's like lots of different sections of this. This is Soft Parade. It's Oops, sorry. Shit, sorry. I just started the song over. Hold on.
I would love to petition the Lord with prayer one more time.
This song is, I don't know, about 8 minutes long. It ends the album. It's a medley of a lot of different sections. Spoken word, like the petition the Lord with prayer part.
Can we hear you? Can't hear you.
And just a lot of different sections. So I love this song. I think it's so odd. And
that's a surprise. I think that's the first. Oh, yeah.
got a little,
He liked the disco part.
little funky disco part right now.
But I'll give them credit. This is before disco was anywhere in the landscape.
You didn't think I was going to pick this up?
No,
Really?
if anything, number one, no,
No.
not number one.
You know, here's the thing. I listened to this album like I was saying before, I got this album, or I taped this album when I was in college, and I always liked this album, and I always thought it was so odd. And when Mike decided he wanted to do the Doors, this was definitely among the ones that I thought maybe that I would pick. I thought maybe this one or LA Woman, and this one just always has like a kind of a soft spot in my heart because it's so weird, and it's so different from the rest of their albums. And I love the songs. I didn't pick it just because it's weird. I picked it because I think there's great songs to this album. And I think if you take their six whatever you call them, the 6 albums, the 6 Jim Morrison albums, I think this probably is. I would put this up with, maybe third after the first album in Strange Days, right? In terms of quality of, maybe not hit songs, but in terms of quality songs and quality songwriting.